Welcome to the Faster Podcast by FLO Cycling, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything that makes you faster on your bike. This is Season 1, Episode 14, and today we have Nate Pearson from TrainerRoad joining us on the show. Nate is the founder of TrainerRoad and has completed the Leadville 100 mountain bike race and many other ultra-endurance events. Listen to this episode to get Nate's advice on how to go faster at your next ultra-endurance event. All right, we have a bit of a different setting here today. We are live in Reno, Nevada for Interbike 2018, and we thought it would be the perfect opportunity to stop by and visit our friends at TrainerRoad and Mr. Nate Pearson. How you doing today?
Good.
Awesome.
I'm actually tired.
You're tired, are you?
Yeah.
All right, well, you got coffee, so that should help out, right?
Interbike's tiring.
Perfect, perfect. So the big reason we're here today is we are always looking for ways for athletes to get faster, and our focus today is ultra endurance events. And Nate, you've done quite a few ultra endurance events in the past.
Yep, I have.
Yep, and just recently you got the big belt buckle at Leadville.
I did.
850.
I did. I think it was, under 850 one. It was 850 XX, something like that.
A very, very impressive time and a huge goal for most people who go to Leadville. That's kind of the goal, is to get under 9 and get the big belt buckle.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So what we want to do is we want to talk to you about all of the things that you've learned about ultra endurance events and kind of get your basic gist on what athletes can do to go to an event like that and find success like you did.
And we were talking about this before, but I just want to frame this as I am not a natural endurance athlete. I am not a pro, because I think there's a lot of people who have amazing VO2 max stuff and they can just do anything and they'll have these amazing times. I am very much so like a slow person who has developed their way to become faster and faster,
which makes it even more impressive.
Exactly.
Really,
So
right?
So I just want to, like, when someone looks at it, like, I like the details, and I'm not naturally gifted at all. And it's been a very big progression, like steps and stuff. So it's not like a 6-hour.
No,
and I think though in this case though, like you have to work smarter in order to get to the goals that you want to accomplish. So that's
what I like to think, is I just try harder.
And you're smart and you keep thinking about it. So yeah, it's perfect.
And I do a lot of the stuff wrong and then learn from that.
Right.
Perfect. Okay, so let's start with just your training, because I mean, without the training, you're not going to get there to what you're doing. So let's just start with how many hours per week were you training up to Leadville?
Yeah, so it varies. Because there's a little bit bigger weeks and a little bit easier weeks where you recover from the stress that you do on the bigger weeks. I'm TrainerRoad. I'm CEO of TrainerRoad and co-founder. Almost 100% of my training for Leadville and this long stuff has been indoors. And other than I did a few longer races outside, but I did not do any outside rides. It was all, I did a few outside rides, but it was almost entirely, say 90% inside, and I didn't do anything longer than 2 hours.
Wow.
Which blows people's minds, because I was at Leadville and people are like, I'm on Saturday, I got to go 6 hours, and then on Sunday, I'm going back to back another 6 hours.
Yep.
And they do all this long, slow stuff. And what I find for me is I don't recover very well. My split when I train is a hard day, an aerobic day. So I do a hard day that might be 90 to 2 hours of intervals. Aerobic day, which is like 90 minutes of aerobic workout, and then either a day off or super easy 45% FTP for an hour. And sometimes I'll do that fanless.
Okay.
And then repeat that.
So on your intervals, what percent of FTP are you holding on those harder interval days? Yeah,
so on that one too, I had a big buildup from 275 FTP to 345 in about 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
And it was almost entirely done on sweet spot training, which is different ways to calculate, but around, I would say 90% FTP. And I would do
90 minutes of that, hour and a half, 2 hours of that.
Intervals of it. So
okay.
what I would do on this is, and TrainerRoad, there's training plans and stuff that have this, but it's progressions. So I think people make cycling training like more complex than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Think of it like weightlifting, and you guys were going to do bench press. Like every week, if you did 135, 8 reps, the next week you'd probably do 140, 8 reps, or at least try, right?
Yeah.
And then if you did 6, and the next week you'd do 8. Same thing with wattage-based training. I might start out with 10-minute intervals, and then once I would do, I'd have rest between each one. I could do that for 2 hours. Then I'd go 12-minute intervals. Then I would go 15-minute intervals, then maybe 18, and then 20. And then if I got to 20, well, maybe then I would try it again and go at 95% FTP or 98% FTP and do that same thing.
And over that period of time, your FTP is raising too. So what used to be 90, going to 95 may actually now be 90 again. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Like it's less about FTP and percentage FTP and more about the work that you're actually doing and just making sure that you're progressing through energy systems.
Yep.
The other thing that I did while doing the sweet spot is I did a little bit of mountain bike racing. I did some VO2 max work, but only like once every 3 weeks. Okay. But it'd be a really hard VO2 max. And we're at 4,500 feet here. So I'd go down to sea level, which you can actually put out more power.
Right.
Yep.
You get limited at 4,500 and Leadville even more.
Yep.
But how much power you can do, so you can gain more out of your VO2 max workouts by going down there. And we're lucky enough that there's mountain bike races with really short, 2-minute climbs.
Yep.
So I kind of look at that race. It's kind of a B or C race. C meaning I train the day before. B, I take one day off.
Yep.
And I was like, ooh, I can get a VO2 max workout and kind of make sure that system doesn't, just
fall apart,
right?
Yeah.
Because if you do just sweet spot forever, your VO2 max power takes a hit. And leading up to Leadville, I want to do some crit racing and stuff like that.
Nice.
So going to an ultra distance, I mean, if you're not doing a single ride over 2 hours, and then going to minus 851, how do you do that?
A couple races. So I did Sagan Fauna, which was like 4.5. I did Lost and Found, was 100-mile gravel grinder, and that was like 6. But I never went to in triathlon, you get a lot too. I need to go the distance in order to complete the distance.
And so
you know what I mean?
You don't feel that that's necessarily the case. I mean, you went from a 2-hour almost to a 9-hour race, and you're fine with that.
Yeah, it's about pacing and nutrition, I feel. And also with I don't want to pitch trainer. I do want to pitch TrainerRoad, but
go ahead.
Okay.
Hey, we're kind of here, right?
Yeah. Trainers in general, you get, I feel like, more bang for your buck, because when I do those 90-minute aerobic sessions, I don't stop pedaling for those whole 90 minutes.
I ride a trainer a ton, and I think you get way more fitness from a trainer. And then if you're doing mountain bike racing, I think you have to get the technical side of it too. You have to learn how to descend. You have to learn how to brake and corner and all those things. But Leadville's not that technical, and really you just need the fitness to get you through the race.
Yeah. So if you think of how many courses you have outside that you can pedal. If I do a 2-hour workout, you can pedal for 2 straight hours,
especially on a mountain bike. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's I put my mountain bike on the trainer sometimes, but I did most of my training on a road bike on the trainer, and the positions were similar enough. It probably would have been better to do it on the mountain bike though, because you want that specificity.
Yeah, muscle memory, all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Even a little change in hip angle can really affect it.
Yeah.
You guys, TTers, it's very dramatic there.
Yeah.
The good part is going from road to mountain is usually
very subtle.
Yeah, and it's easier because your hip angle is even bigger.
Exactly.
If I was going to a more closed-off position, let's say I was always on the mountain and I was going to do a big, long road race, I probably wouldn't train a lot of my mountain bike.
Hip flexor, psoas, all that stuff starts to bind up on you.
Yeah.
It can be tough.
So if you add up the number of days you were training in a week in order to prepare for this, how many days a week were you training?
Chart.
Yeah.
I love it.
I got a new calendar app we're launching.
There we go.
It's probably 5 days a week.
Okay.
5 days a week? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds right. Because I would do that 3 on, 1 off, 3 on, 1 off. So it kind of, it fluctuates.
What type of TSS were you hitting per week?
So my peak that I did for the season, my 6 weeks average was 563. But really my goal for the season was just to keep it above 400. Okay. And I did, which isn't that much, especially because... So we talk about this a lot, but all training stress isn't created equal. Training stress being the what potential kind of fitness you can derive from it.
Yep.
And it's really easy to get a whole bunch of TSS if you're doing long outside rides.
Yep.
You can just rack them up. But if you're doing inside stuff, like a really hard 2-hour ride might be 140 TSS inside, and that will just smash me.
Yeah.
But outside, you do that for over 3 hours, and you can actually recover a little bit easier from it.
Because it's not all compacted down into one chunk.
Yeah, exactly. It's more intense.
Yeah.
And for instance, you could get 300 TSS 2 different ways. Just doing easy stuff every single day.
Yep.
Or 3 extremely hard 1-hour workouts. Like over 6 weeks, you're probably going to be faster doing those extremely hard workouts as long as you don't get burnt out.
Right.
So it just, when I say, people probably listen and say, I do more TSS than that, but it's the structured intervals that I think, like, we don't have a really good measure in the cycling industry to say that the structured intervals are actually, you derive more fitness from that than just doing long, easy, slow rides.
Okay, so
what was the TSS for the race?
Oh,
yeah, that's a good question.
that was 3:59, but you gotta no, but so you lose power at elevation. So Leadville is at 10,000 feet.
Yes,
and do you guys want to talk about elevation now, or?
No, that's coming.
Okay.
That's me. I got a whole section on altitude here.
I mean, so it's the normalized power. Your TSS is normalized power, and it's a ratio function between that and your FTP. But at elevation, you're not going to put out as much power.
Right.
So you're going to actually get less TSS. And if I were to do the same race at sea level,
what
it'd be more.
Do you know what it would have been?
I don't know. I have
probably over 4 for sure, right? Which is a huge day.
I would say so. Yeah.
I mean, people do that in a week, and you're doing that all in one straight day. Okay, so let's talk about this for a sec. So there's obviously the aerobic side of an 8 to 10 hour, 8 to 12 hour race, which you say that you've got through 2-hour training sessions essentially.
Yeah, with some of the longer stuff.
Yeah.
I think I did a 5.5 hour mountain bike race too.
Yeah.
There's also the muscular strength. Your musculoskeletal system has to be able to endure 10 hours on a bike, roughly.
Yeah.
So do you feel like your 2-hour workouts hurt you in any way with that? Did you cramp? Did you have any muscle issues? And if you did, do you think a specific strength training in the gym could have fixed that, or do you just need long rides on the weekend to fix that?
Yeah, so there's two parts of that. One is I knew that my position was pretty good.
Okay.
And like, you cannot find out how you're going to feel after 5 hours with 2-hour rides, right?
Yeah,
like,
so that's what I'm saying. Like, did you struggle on the race with that?
I did after, there's a section where you have Columbine where you have to push your bike up loose stuff and twist.
Okay.
And I started at like 12,000 feet. That is when I started to hurt. And then
it could be 12,000 feet.
Yeah. And it got darn right dangerous because you descend this really fast open fire road at like, you can go 40. And I was literally sitting, like I had my seat dropped, sitting on my seat, one leg down, because I was so tired. When, you should be like hip hinged and low.
Ready position.
Yes.
I saw Howard Gratz go down, and his chin was like right next to his stem, and he was, he looked like a downhill racer. I was not like that.
Wow.
I think that
like you're riding a laid back beach cruise.
Exactly, yeah. Just waiting for the front wheel to slip out. I think that what you can do is, and to some of your other races, after the race, you see what part of your body hurts.
Yeah.
Because during the race, too, everything's tired, and I'm not really thinking about it.
Sure.
But after the race, like my neck, my triceps, and my back.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I've been trying to work on that lately to strengthen those. And I totally think that strengthening those muscles would, especially in the gym, is an easier way to get that strength than to say, I'm going to strengthen these muscles by doing 8-hour outside rides.
Yeah.
I do an 8-hour outside ride, and it's like at least a week. I mean, I don't even think I've ever done an 8-hour outside ride.
Really?
I just did a race, a 4.5-hour race here a couple days ago, and I'm still tired from that. Like, it just saps the energy out of me. It takes for me, I get more fitness by doing kind of the little small, like,
Yep.
a lot of some training stress, recover, then this big, huge mountain of training stress, and then I have to recover for like a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just
Doesn't work for you.
It doesn't work for me. It could work for some people, but not me.
Cool. All right, let's get into some altitude stuff.
I mean, obviously, altitude has a huge effect on performance. Do you have any tips that you can get when it comes to acclimating for elevation? We've heard, 24 hours or 3 weeks, different things.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't like that. Well, I like it, but I don't. It's annoying that everyone says that because, one, it's really hard to get to the race 24 hours ahead of time.
Yeah, it's
and
almost
two,
impossible.
It's even harder to be there for 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what about all the days in between?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so is it better to be
Mobile office.
What if I could do 5? What if I could do 14?
Right.
What's better there? And there wasn't any real data on that.
Yep.
This isn't a study, but Team Sky, one of their coaches said that after 7 days at elevation,
Yes.
they saw a very a huge increase in the power data from their riders after just 7 days.
Really?
Yeah. So I banked on that. I went up a week ahead of time, and there's some there's some tables you can look online if you just look at powered elevation.
Yep, I have it actually here. That's one of my next topics. But
Yeah.
basically, I think Joel Friel had the table that I saw, and it says at 10,000 feet, even if you're acclimated, you can hit about 83% of your sea level FTP. So if you're not acclimated, that drops down to 79.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if you go into the race with a 300 FTP, you're going to lose 20% off the top, which takes you down to a 240, which is a huge difference.
It's gigantic. So I came in at a 330 FTP. I'm a big guy though. I'm 198 centimeters, 6'6", and 186 pounds, or like 84 K. And so I came in at 330 at sea level. That would probably be about 345. And I came in a week ahead of time. I did a ride, and I stayed at 10,000 feet. I did a ride when I first got in there. I felt really good. Like, I think I was only there for like 18 hours.
Yeah.
I felt great. 3 days later, I did another ride.
You felt terrible.
Yeah, I thought
I raced in that time frame once. I tried to hit the 24-hour window, and I missed it by 6 hours or 12 hours, and I just blew up. It was horrible.
according to these tables, my adjusted FTP up there should be like 290, 300, depending on which scientist you think of what it is.
Yeah.
Barely on that day, and I've done a lot of power training. I can kind of feel my FTP. I think it's like 270 would have been generous to try to climb like on that third day. And the way you can kind of feel it too, for those who don't have a power meter, is there's this level where you can kind of sustain it, but then if you go any harder, it gets extremely hard very quickly.
Right. Yep.
So, and then at the race day, a whole week later, I actually felt really good on race day, and didn't really have a huge power drop off with my numbers.
So where were you race day?
you-
What was the percentage then? So you're almost agreeing with Team Sky that day 7 makes some pretty good sense.
I was pretty good, at a week, and I think that's more reasonable for people to take vacation and stuff, or work remotely a week, but not 3 weeks. Is not a very
So
exactly.
do you recommend? So let's say you go up to a race like this, and you're at day 7. You can get up there a week ahead of time. Do you think it's wise for athletes to do an FTP test a day or so before the race, just to? No? So you say just do the math and do it.
Do the math and then go conservative, because on a race like this, it's a war of attrition, right? So and Leadville has its own kind of pacing tactics with groups and stuff, but it's so much easier to start a race, go a little bit easier, and then pass people the entire race. Than to have the opposite. And you think like triathlons too, right? It's so much easier to pass people through the race than to just get passed and passed and passed and passed and then feel horrible.
So what's the quick formula on?
It's just the tables. Yeah.
You have it.
Yeah, it's basically here. So at 10,000 feet, you're roughly 80% of your FTP.
So I did so I reduced, what I did for pacing is I reduced my reduction of FTP for elevation.
Yep.
And one thing too is you got to make sure you're real truthful with yourself about your FTP is.
Yes.
There's the FTP you tell everyone, and then what is what you actually think it is. You don't have to tell anyone that one.
Yeah.
But take that number, reduce it, and then if you can do some test rides and stuff and feel, but be aware of that you're going to feel worse in the middle of the week than at the end of the week.
So why did you say don't do an FTP test at elevation? Too much stress on the body before the race?
Yeah, totally.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even your ramp test? That doesn't seem too bad.
Yes, and I could see if it goes wrong, it could just mess your brain up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go in with what you know and do the math. And
Okay, now the race starts at 10,000 feet roughly, right? And it climbs up to, is it 10.4 or 12.4 or 12.6?
12.4, I think.
12.4. Did you notice a big difference between the 10 and the 12.4?
Yeah, and you can even see my power drop off as it goes down. I climbed Haleakala in Hawaii, which is like, you go from
sea level to 10. Yeah.
And you can just see my power file as the elevation goes up. Yep.
Falling off.
Just falling, yeah.
So when you were on day 7 and you did the math, did you go with the acclimated value or the non-acclimated?
Acclimated. Yeah.
So you considered acclimated at day 7.
I did. And I wanted more.
And that worked out.
Well, my results showed it too, like with the amount of power I did, which I was thinking I could do about 200 for the race, and I did 212 normalized power. So that was
I
a
have
point.
all your stats here. I did my homework.
Yeah.
We'll have to post this table because this is actually a really cool table. So for the people that are listening, we have a table in front of us that shows basically if you're at sea level and all the way up to 14,000 feet. And then it shows you a number, a percentage to multiply your FTP by based on if you're acclimated or non-acclimated. And then that will give you a number to hold during your race. That's actually a really cool table.
Cool. Okay, let's get into, is it carbo loading or carb loading?
I don't know. Probably carb loading.
Let's call it carb
If it's
loading.
the 80s.
Carbo's
Yeah.
kind of like that new trendy word, carbo.
I think it was cool in the
exactly.
80s, like
Carbo
loading.
Yeah, exactly.
So you are a bit of a legend when it comes to carb
eating.
loading.
Yeah.
Like, you can eat like a horse. And so basically, let's just talk about it. What are the benefits of carb loading?
Okay, so there's been a lot of research on this, a lot of research in carbs in general. And over the years, carbs have gone like out of fashion.
Yes.
Maybe now they're coming in a little bit more. And people listening to this are like, no, the best way to do long endurance events is become fat adapted. Don't eat carbs. They're going to give you cancer and all these diseases. And you guys actually had someone else on your podcast recently. The way that I've eaten and the way that I've really increased the ability for me to train more and raise my FTP is the whole foods. It's a endurance diet. I think you're
Dr. Stacy Sims.
Yeah. To do whole foods, sweet potatoes, lots of vegetables, lots of fruits, whole grain breads, that kind of stuff. No Oreos.
So I might anger some people who are into the fat thing, but I tried that and it was horrible for me.
When you say the fat thing, what do you mean by the fat thing?
Where like
Fat adapted?
the ketogenic, the paleo type
like
thing,
keto,
where you basically cut everything and you just eat a ton of fats. You train with it. You eat different food when you train. And my blood levels were all messed up. I was for the first time in my life, and then I met Stacy, and she got me on this diet.
That was years ago, right?
Years ago, and in overnight, I was better and training better for sure. And you find the same thing.
Yeah, and I never did the fat adapted, but I didn't realize how little carbs I was eating, and I weighed my food and everything, and I tried to now eat like 70% during the day, which is a whole bunch. You got to go eat pretty low fat, or else your calories you have a ton of calories.
Right.
And I think there is a spot for fat adapted athletes in ultra endurance running, especially where you can't take in food.
Yeah.
But triathletes and endurance riders for these type of events, there's so much food. Right. Like you've never for triathlon. Yeah, you don't even need like more than one bottle on your bike.
No.
But there's so many aid stations. And then if you're doing something like RAM, where you're race across America, you're going for multiple days. And you just can't eat enough to keep up over those days.
Right.
Those situations seem good for me.
So
but I don't even remember the question.
What is carb loading do?
Oh yeah, so what it does
Yeah.
is you actually get more glycogen in your muscles, which each gram of glycogen, I believe you carry 4 grams of water, or is it 3 grams of water? It's around there. So as you carb load, you're actually your muscles are going to feel more full. You're going to have more water. You're going to weigh more. But what it does is it lowers the RPE of your effort. Really? So rate of perceived effort. Yeah, and there's a lot of research on that as you're going, things don't hurt as much. And anecdotally, I feel like if I don't eat enough carbs, my legs get sore. And after training, they're sore. And when I get really full, the soreness goes away. And you can actually, I'm not fat, but I'm not super lean. When I also carb load, like your muscles get so big, you feel like you just gained a whole bunch of fat.
We all have that problem when our muscles get so big.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's no one else would notice.
Yeah.
But when you do it and you flex your leg, but the fat gets pushed out too. So bodybuilders have this, and if they have a low body fat, it looks amazing. But as a cyclist, when it happens to you, when you have fat too, it doesn't.
Yeah,
it just got to be like aware of that you're going to feel fat.
Okay, so let me ask you this real quick. You said that you get muscle soreness when you don't carb load. If you just go,
if I don't eat carbs,
so if you're on a long ride and you don't take in nutrition, do you find that your muscles get more sore after that ride?
I think so, yeah.
Because I just did a ride this weekend, and I've been fueling through all my rides, and I forgot my nutrition. It was a 4-hour ride, and I thought, I'll just deal with it. I was so sore after that ride.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know. So I don't know if I don't have any research on that, but that's how I feel.
That's how you felt too. Interesting.
And when you say carbs, are you talking like complex carbs, simple carbs, how are you splicing up your carbs? Are you eating like a ton of vegetables?
Okay,
or
so
are you eating like a ton of bread?
when I'm loading, I'm doing oatmeal, brown rice, sweet potatoes, different types of oatmeal because there's like the cream of wheat. There's like a whole wheat cream of wheat you can buy.
Yeah.
Steel cut. I'll do whole wheat pasta. It gets really tiring. And the reason I read one study that said that rice, not this amount of carbs, rice loads better than bread.
Okay.
And the reason that they thought, they didn't know for sure, but they said that bread, there's yeast in it and there's more surface area, so you digest it faster than something thicker.
Oh,
like rice.
like a circle, like a ball.
So how I think of, I don't know if this is true, but how I think of it in my brain at least is that I want things to take time to digest so I have a more even release so my body has a greater chance to absorb the carbs.
Yep.
And you can only absorb about 60 grams of glucose an hour and about 30 grams of fructose.
Yep.
Okay.
Somewhere around there, it's maybe 65, and so a total of about 100. And so what I want is more fiber in my system and things that digest slower to kind of even that out as much as I can.
Yeah. There's a hilarious video of Jonathan, who we had on episode 1 of this, actually, on his Instagram story of you'd already eaten a ton of food, and then you went into the kitchen where you guys were staying, and you were trying to eat another entire box of cereal.
Yeah,
and
I
the
didn't.
look on your face just looked like
I didn't know he did that.
you were being tortured.
Yeah. So the amount, there's different ways to carb load.
Okay.
And I think the classic way was like over multiple days, and then there was someone who said you need to deplete yourself. Do this big ride.
Yeah, it's like it's cycling, right? Called carb cycling. That was a huge thing a while ago where you would eat carbs and then you would stop and you would eat no carbs and then you would cycle.
Yeah, and that seems hard too. And then I read a meta study, so a study of studies, and they said you get to the same place.
Okay.
So the easiest way of all the ways that they suggested for me was 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days between like 9 to 10 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight.
Wow.
So for me that's
a ton of carbs.
Yeah, 840. I think it maybe even go up to 11. I think I was doing like 950 grams of carbs. So almost 4,000 calories of just carbs for 2 days in a row. It's like an event, and you have to. I've done it. I've only done it successfully twice, and it's 2 of my best races. And if you look at the results in Leadville or another one, Lost and Found, that second half of the race, I feel great, and I'm passing so many people.
And when do you do that 4,000 calorie day?
2 days before.
2 days before the race?
Yeah, and then the morning of, I'm trying to do I think 400 grams of carbs. In the morning, which is really hard.
Like an hour, within an hour before the race?
3 hours.
3 hours.
3 to 4 hours, yeah. And then right before the race, I'll do maybe like 20 grams of fructose, of glucose.
Oh, wow.
When you were doing this research, did you find any competing theories with carb loading versus? So you've just said, you get this.
Yeah. People send it to me. So a lot of there will be things saying that people who carb load and people who don't carb load after 3 hours are in the exact same spot.
Right.
And some of the other negatives that you get is when you carb load, you gain weight because there's all that glycogen and the water. Like you physically have more on you.
So your watts per kg goes down.
Exactly. And if you're climbing a lot, I could gain, I might gain 4 or 5 pounds carb loading. Okay. But I'm bigger than most people, so I would gain more.
Yeah.
But the one thing is, if it's like carrying that more water, it's actually good because you're more hydrated.
Oh,
right.
And
especially over a 9 hour day.
Because it's really hard to stay hydrated. And maybe I am in the same spot, and I don't know why this happens, but performance, if you just look at performance, in my experience, it's been very, very helpful. And I think there's other research saying that it does increase performance, even if the markers say there's no difference. And I don't know why those two things, like a lot of things in science, right? They disagree.
Yeah.
You don't know why.
But it just works, or you feel it works for you or it doesn't. And
I'm starting to get hungry after cereal. Do you have any advice on things not to eat when carb loading? Like things that can just kind of derail you?
You got to eat a ton of brown rice to get 4,000 calories.
Hard.
Like how much? So can you eat something denser, like sugary cereal?
Yeah, I did some tart cherry juice. You got to make sure fruit's easier, but fruit is...
It has a lot of fiber too.
It does, and I eat a lot of fiber, and I like eating fiber for a race because it gets me to be very like consistent.
Yeah.
So I can go the morning of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have like 3 times morning of. That's the best way. But seriously, like I don't know why people don't do fiber right before, because I don't want to change my diet, go low fiber, and then not be able to go race morning. And it's coming out.
somewhere on the
through.
course.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's not.
So is there anything that can derail it? Something you would not eat?
Yeah, anything with a lot of fat. And that's so, like, it's amazing. You say, like, I want just a little bit of butter on this, or I want just a little bit of olive oil with these, like, hash browns I'm making. And the amount of calories that adds to it.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah, it's like a...
Well, it's 9 grams per... It's 9 grams or calories per gram versus 4 for proteins and carbs. So, yeah, it's more than twice. Okay, so that's your nutrition before the race. Let's talk about your nutrition during the race. And we did a podcast with Daryl Griffiths from Shots in Australia. And really, your stomach is the limiter with everything. Mm-hmm. So when you're racing, your stomach can absorb, the best stomachs can do about 400 calories per hour. You can absorb about a liter of water an hour. And I think the sodium was about 1,200 milligrams that you can absorb. So for an 8-hour race, you're going to burn a lot more calories per hour than you can take in. Your skin is a huge organ compared to the lining of your stomach, so you sweat a lot more fluid out than you can absorb through your small lining of your stomach. So really, you're trying to minimize your losses. What did you do on race day for your nutrition plan, and how did it work out for you?
Yeah, so it's an eating competition.
Okay,
And
I love that.
It is.
it is. No, for 9 hours, it has to be.
It is. And so many people, they like, I don't know if it's like a mental block, but they're like, I'm going to do 1 bar an hour. And it's like 150 calories. And you just said it right, like 400 an hour. And then they have all these problems. Like they are so not performing up to where like their bodies could perform
Right.
just because of eating.
Okay.
So again, I get into the ratios between glucose and fructose because they absorb on different pathways, and I want to absorb that 100 grams of carbs or 400 calories per hour. So what I did is SIS gels, which I like, and they're supposed to be isotonic, meaning you don't have to take water with them.
Yeah.
And they just go down pretty easily on the mountain bike. I can squish them. I have some here.
What is that, isotonic?
That means you don't have to add water to absorb it. Like if you eat a bar, your body actually has to take water.
Fluid.
Yeah, fluid to be able to digest that. So you don't want to. Water's a scarce resource in these races.
Right. You want to conserve that as much as
Yeah.
possible.
So even with sodium, I know like if you, like Shots, for example, is an example, you have to mix the ratio of that to get it into your system. So what I actually do is I just take the package, I open it, pour all the powder in my mouth, and then have to drink a bunch of water after. You're saying with these SIS gels, you don't have to pound a bunch of water in your system after you take it.
Well, yeah, it's the gel though. It's the carbs. So
Do you
it's
get sodium in it though too?
you can in some of them, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, different levels. They have a electrolyte mix that has more sodium.
That's cool.
So then I do those, and those are all glucose. And I did honey stinger gels, and those are chews. Those are the only ones that I know that have a 1-to-1 ratio between fructose and glucose.
Okay.
And then I think there's other ones that have more fructose, but I like to have the chews just to change the flavor
Mix it up.
profile.
Yeah.
Yep. So I did the math, and that was scratch. I could do 2 bottles of scratch, I think an SIS gel, and a pack of the chews.
Yeah.
And that would put me at the 100 grams per hour with the 60-30 ratio.
Okay.
And you should, this is off the top of my head, I don't really remember exactly, but it's something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
The other thing I did is before the race, I also pre-salt loaded.
Okay.
So Scratch makes a hyperhydration mix,
Yes.
which is a whole bunch of salt the night before, and I would do that the night before, and then morning of, I would have another maybe 32 ounces of water with their hyperhydration mix, and that's to carry even more water on board because
your the sodium makes you retain more water.
Yep.
Okay.
and I want so that with the glycogen loading and the salt loading, I'm gaining a whole bunch of weight, but the weight penalty, people are, I think you guys know, people get so so concerned about weight when you got to think of after 5 hours, if I can put out 60 more watts because I'm not cramping.
Yes.
Right.
The extra 2 pounds of water or whatever
Did
does
nothing.
not matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter at all.
So basically, they're showing up like a water balloon. That's kind of the goal for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's going to all come out. And really after 5 hours, I might start by the time I don't know this for a fact, but that's what I think in my head. After like 4 or 5 hours, I am now as hydrated as everyone else was at the beginning of the race.
Exactly.
Right.
Because I've
That's
been
a
a
great
camel.
spot to be. Yeah.
Exactly. Rather than like, almost
Okay.
lost.
So now I get the impression with a race like this that the feed zones and your support crew can be absolutely critical. Can you second that? And do you think that you could have done as well as you did at this race without your support crew that you had? Because it sounds like Jonathan and Chad did a bang up job for you.
Could have done a little better with. I made one mistake. So, I mean, yes, a support crew was huge.
Okay.
I don't even know. I didn't even see like regular aid stations, but I think I only stopped for 3 minutes or something over 9 hours or 3 hours.
So
3
you
minutes.
basically rolled through.
We try to do NASCAR like as fast as you can, because a lot of races like this, especially when you have a time cutoff of 9, like it's easy to be there and you kind of sit there and you fill your own water bottle up, and that takes 30 seconds, and you do that 6 times, and that's 3 more minutes. Exactly.
Okay.
So we knew exactly. It would reach in my pockets, take everything out. I had baggies labeled for each aid station they're going to be at. I said, this is what I want in my pockets. So they would reach in my pockets, grab everything out, put the new stuff in one pocket. Another person would put the bottles on my bike. We actually did helmet switches too, which I would have changed a little bit.
I heard that. Yeah. You went from aero to breathing, right?
Yeah.
Like a cooler helmet.
Yeah. And again, like people need to be more concerned about aerodynamics. On Leadville, it's like 90 minutes of climbing and then 90 minutes of flat.
Yeah.
And then a big climb and then another 90 minutes of flat.
And there's 30 road miles. Or you said 3 hours of road riding, right?
Yeah.
Which is on pavement.
No, flattish, right? Where you're at higher speeds.
Okay.
The other thing people don't think about, like mountain bikes are like, we don't need aerodynamics. We're going so slow. But
Not true.
And a lot of these times too, you'll be at like a down like 1 or 2%. So maybe you're going 16 miles per hour, but then you're in a 15 mile per hour headwind. Right. So now the effective wind speed is 31 miles per hour. And you're like, I'm on a road bike going 31. You're never doing that on a TT if there's no wind.
No.
And your aerodynamics are suddenly a huge importance.
I agree.
Well, Chris was saying last night to some of the guys in Leadville, they're starting to use clip-on TT bars for those sections of the races because it saves. I mean, obviously your body is the biggest drag component.
Did you have any aero clip-ons or anything like that for the race?
No, but I would put my hands together on certain sections when I would bridge up between groups.
And drop down.
Not drop down because I'd lose too much power and it would be too tiring for me.
Okay.
But I would just kind of grab close to the stem.
So I'm doing a 30-mile mountain bike race. My goal may be to do Leadville next year, and I've officially announced that right here. But I think aero's big, and the race that I'm doing, this 30-miler, there's one big climb out and back. You go over it twice, and the rest of it are these really flat roads. And I've been playing with the aerodynamics of it, and just dropping into the aero bars, you're gaining a mile an hour or more as you're riding. So I just looked at buying a set of clip-ons for my mountain bike for these long, fire road type events that you can gain a lot of time with it.
Yeah,
that's very interesting.
I wore a skin suit. I know with your guys' podcast with Ryan Cooper, he said do that last, but man, you have to buy a kit anyways.
Right.
So if you're buying a kit, I would recommend
just buy the skin suit and position and going to aero bars. There's a lot. It's not just like I'm going to change my position. Now it's all good. You got to change your position. Now there's going to be pain and adaptation, and you're going to tweak it like 1,000 times.
Yep.
A skin suit, if it fits, it's just you spend the money and it's done. It's like wheels, right?
Yeah.
Just buy them.
Just put them on.
And they're good.
Put them on.
And you're good to go. You don't have to do more stuff. So I had a skin suit. I don't think I saw any other amateurs with the skin suit on. And why wouldn't you do a skin suit?
I have a skin suit for my race coming up. It's 30 miles.
Good for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
On these long races, in my opinion, this is looking at other people's times and how fast they went. I believe that 1 watt is about 1 minute to 1.5 minutes on the length of like a 9-hour course.
Yeah.
Wow.
So for every watt, because you think 1 watt that's not much, but over 9 hours, it's huge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just wearing a different skin suit, like if you're going 30, a skin suit can save 20 watts.
I've always said the fastest athletes, even the pros, are the smartest ones. If you look at their bikes, they have every single mechanical advantage that they can. And
it's funny, people make fun of the guys who put clip-ons on these bikes, but Todd Wells, right? He won it in 2016, and he had aero bars on his mountain bike. He's doing something right? Yeah. So
back to the crew stuff for a bit. You said it looks like it's a tough job. do you have any advice for somebody running crew, and how can they help you as the rider on the day? What's the best thing?
Yeah, so you have to move between the aid stations extremely fast and know where you're going. So in this area too, if you can download maps, Google Maps offline, that'll help a lot. Also, bring ice. The way that we could have improved our aid stuff is at the beginning of the day, they filled my second hydration pack because I had switched off hydration packs and I was having time with bottles where it was more aerodynamic to have the bottles and a big pack on me. By the time that the end of the race came, and this is like 7 hours through where I am hot and all the preloading is gone.
Yeah.
I got a hot backpack full of hot Martang, which is like, that's another one that's mixed correctly with the ratios. And I just couldn't drink it. And it was 2.5 hours till the end. And it was in another aid station for like another hour and a half. And I just totally melted. So I kind of had a big blow up, and that was the mistake because I had to carry around this 5-pound backpack that I couldn't drink because it was too hot. And then when it gets too hot, you can't eat too, right?
Yeah.
And what is Martang? Is that what you call it?
Martang, yeah.
Martang, what is it?
So they developed it, I think it's somewhere in Europe, but for the Nike Sub 2. Yeah. They made it for that, and it's pretty much just a mix of glucose, fructose, and electrolytes, but it's in the right ratio.
Okay.
And on this race, I started out with that as a backpack because it is very hectic at the beginning. There's 2,000 racers in corrals, and you're climbing kind of double track, and you just can't. You're so close to everyone, you can't reach down for a bottle. So having the back for the beginning is very nice, and then you get to take it off later, and they put bottles on my bike.
Right, and I think you're a bit like me. You're not that good of a handler on a mountain bike, so for me, it's like a camelback or I'm falling off the bike. So
I can reach down for bottles, but
on the fire roads, not on the technical stuff.
I got that tip from Rebecca Rush, and she's won it, and she's a very good handler. But even with her, it's better to have that pack for her at the beginning of the race.
Okay.
That's really cool. I like how you're switching bottles and bags for different sections and helmets. That's actually really clever.
Yeah.
One of the big things that we've talked about on the podcast before is sweat. We talked about sweat with Daryl from Shots. We also talked about cramping. We have our attorney, actually, Mike, awesome guy. He just completed his 10th Lotaja. So he's done over 2,000 miles out there, and he historically has cramped time and time and time again. And so he actually took some of the advice of Stacy Sims, and he took Tums, and he did not cramp this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was his first year. So I'm super happy.
Sodium bicarbonate.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So he used that, and he's an animal on the bike. I mean, he plays 4th in his division this year. He's always sub 9 on the Lotaja, so very impressive. So, have you ever looked into sweat? I know that's kind of becoming an interesting thing. Have you done a test? Do you think that doing a test would help you in the future? What are your thoughts on sweat?
I haven't. I want to, just because I'm a data nerd.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it will help me until I see the data. Right. Like if I'm somewhere in the extremes, I do. So I don't know what your other guest said, but this is what I know about cramping. They aren't exactly sure why people cramp. And I think that people cramp for multiple reasons.
Yep.
And they kind of get all, so all three of us could cramp for a different reason. And if we're in a study and we're trusting hydration,
right.
But mine is I wasn't trained enough, and maybe yours is salt, that it would seem like, oh no, it's not hydration, right? Because I don't know if we've identified cramping to a level, but I do think for me, if I don't drink, I cramp.
Okay.
And I've had that happen a few times.
I have too.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Exactly.
Okay. Interesting. Let's talk about pacing for the race.
Okay.
So, you went sub 9, as we know, and your FTP going in was what, 345?
330.
330. And what did that equate to for watts per kg?
About 3.9.
3.9 watts per kg. Now, was that at Reno elevation?
Yes.
Okay, so if you could adjust that for sea level, but
probably like 4.1.
So about 4.1 at sea level elevation.
What are we in elevation right here in Reno?
4,500.
4,500.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
cool.
So then is it safe to assume that 4 watts per kilo at Leadville would lead to a sub 9?
I think you can do it less. Well, it depends. There's all the equipment things that I do.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, if you don't, I mean, you're having you got NASCAR teams out there basically doing your gear changes.
Yeah. I
mean, if you mess that up too, I mean, you may need a 5 watt per kg to actually.
Yeah.
And equipment, pacing, groups. But the thing that I'm bad at is descending. and I probably lost 10 minutes descending. And my blow up,
You said you lost half an hour-ish there, 20 minutes maybe?
yeah, I was with the group, and I think the group finished in like 8:20.
Okay.
Before I had my thing where I didn't drink and I had big problems with hydration.
Yeah.
So I think 4 watts per kilo, if you are just not dumb and you do good setup, you can totally do sub 9
Okay.
at 4 watts.
Okay, so let me ask you this, just to get an idea of how much fitter the pros are or people going. So I've heard Jonathan say that Jonathan from TrainerRoad, that he may have a sub 8 goal.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea on how many watts per kilo that would take?
I bet Jonathan could do it at 4.5 because he would do all the things that I did, but he also has outstanding descending
Handling
skills.
skills, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he'd probably be. I mean, you could go even less than that. There's a possibility that me at maybe 4.2 or something, I could go sub 8 if I could handle my bike and descend. Because I mean, I'm descending some of these things at 20 miles per hour when a pro might be going 40.
Yeah,
because I'm just so cautious and I don't want to loose over hard is scary going that fast.
If you look at the tech stuff that you're talking about, like the crew and all that sort of stuff, if you nail that versus just not even considering it, completely screwing it up, how much time do you think you can lose over the race?
I mean, it depends on how bad you screw it up, because it's what you're really asking is, what if you don't get your food? And
Well, you may not even finish.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But let's assume you have enough food, but you're not doing it efficiently. So you don't get to the point where you just completely crash and you're on the side of the trail.
I mean, how many times do you see people in big races where they spend 5 minutes at an aid station or 10 minutes at an aid station, right?
Yeah.
And there could be 6 of them. So, I mean, that's 30 minutes right there that you're just like sitting at aid stations kind of like, oh, that was a hard climb. You like talk to people and And 5 minutes rest doesn't seem that long. You 5 minutes between an interval.
But 6 times in a row, it's 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go. So I'm going to go with you use power to pace yourself. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so your numbers from what I did my homework, but you were normalized 212 for the race.
Yep.
Which worked out to an average power of 163, right?
Yep.
And that's about 50% of your FTP at Reno elevation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's a relatively low average if you think about it. And that's still got you a sub 9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, you also said that your IF, which is your intensity factor, was 0.7.
I was wrong. 0.64.
0.64.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. So when you paced for the day.
Oh, actually, you know what? It's 0.7 if you down adjust my FTP for elevation.
Intensity factor. Can you explain that?
Yeah.
Intensity factor is your ratio between your normalized power and your FTP. No, FTP to normalized power.
So it's normalized.
No, normalized FTP, yeah.
So
Okay, that's what I thought
normalized
it was.
over FTP.
Yes.
And that's your intensity factor.
Yep.
That's a new
Okay.
one.
So when it came to pacing with power, what did you do? Did you say, I'm going to try and hold? And so, Ryan Cooper, for example, you've had him on your podcast. We've had him on our podcast. He'll spit out like turn by turn wattages to hold.
Yeah.
Did you do something like that? Or did you just go, this is a 9-hour day. I'm going to try and hold 50% of my FTP? Or what did you do?
I put it in best bike split.
Okay.
And then I got a limit of how much I was going to push on climbs.
Yeah.
So kind of an upper level.
Okay.
And I said, I'm not going to ever go above that, because that's these long races. It's always about pace. I mean, like not going too hard,
Right.
Rather than maybe in a sprint triathlon, you're like, I got to keep it above this number, and you're always looking at it, trying to keep it above.
Okay.
It's the opposite, especially at the beginning when everyone's going super hard. So I had the climb kind of pace, and then I had the flat pace that I would do, like don't exceed this. And on the flats too is kind of don't go below
Right.
this, because I wanted to gain a lot of time. And me being a bigger rider, the flat would be my advantage.
So what did that work out to for you, numbers wise?
I think I wanted to do around 250 on the climbs.
Which is what percent of your FTP? So down adjust, you're about 300. So you're holding, what is that, like 83%?
Roughly.
300. Yeah. What? It's exactly 83. Did you know that?
I did.
83.3.
I'm an engineer. I've done a little bit of math. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's relatively high
And
but that's just the climbs.
Yeah.
And yes, so going back to my training, right? I am doing these 30-minute intervals at 90% multiple times. Like I am training for this exact thing. And I know the climbs in
And
Leadville.
you're not even going to the 90. You're going at 83, which
Exactly.
is totally attainable.
And I know these climbs are I think the first couple ones are like 30 minutes of climbing at a time.
Yep.
And then there's the big one. But so I ahead of time, I looked at that.
Okay.
And I said, so in my training, I want to be more specific. And I knew that sweet spot work can really be beneficial and not burn you out.
So do you always hear the thing, you only have so many matches in a race. You don't feel that you're going deep enough on those efforts to really burn all your matches?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
So then on the flats, what were you holding? Do you know?
Yeah, I'll look right here. 230.
230.
Yep.
So, okay.
So 250 on the climb, 230 on the flat.
Can you nail a quick math on that one?
Geez, that would be 300, 240, 72%, 70%, 70, 72?
76.
A little off. Yeah, okay.
And then the reason that it's my, on the second half, I did slow down at the very end. I slowed down a bunch. And then the descents too. That would really that lowers because you're doing a whole bunch of descending at Leadville.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So athletes who go out and do a 40K TT, right? I mean, you know your FTP. You're basically going to try and ride at FTP for that duration. What is you guys do a ton of work with power. Let's say an athlete's going to go do a 2-hour race, a 4-hour race, an 8-hour race. What percentage of their FTP should they be holding for these events that are over an hour? Do you have a table or a chart?
Yeah, you can Google it, but it's very trainable. So it's not like you do an FTP test and you can suddenly hold this amount.
Specific, yeah.
Yeah, so, but it's a range and you can get better at it. Off the top of my head, it's hard. I think actually Joe Friel's got some good stuff on this for Ironman about how you should pace on it.
Okay.
I refer to that a lot to see.
So let's say you look at his table and he has the Ironman bike pacing. That's an 8-hour to 12-hour race for most people. Are you saying that you should just follow his Ironman pacing plan for this event?
No, I would raise so yeah, that's like for like maybe a 6-hour bike ride, I'll have it.
Okay.
And then I might actually do that 6-hour and say that's going to be my goal for 9 hours.
Oh, okay.
Right?
So you
could extend it because you have to run a marathon.
Right.
So you can go harder
Yeah.
than is before. And I've had enough training that I knew that I think I before I tried to do 0.7 IF is what I could probably hold for 9 hours. And I would look at previous races that I've done. So the 6-hour one and see what percentage I could hold for that.
Okay.
And just like you learn more about yourself. And
So you basically take the bike portion. If it's a half Ironman or half Ironman, they recommend between 80 and 85% for most people of your FTP. So if you were if you're quick, the pros are up in the 85 to 87ish range. So you're going to look more. So if you're doing a 4-hour race, you might say, hey, I'm going to try and hold that for 4 hours because I don't have to run afterwards.
Exactly.
Okay. Interesting. All right. You guys interviewed Alex Grant right before the race.
Yeah.
He estimated that he had about a 320-ish FTP and he was aiming for high 200s. Now, that is a lot higher than your 0.7 IF. Do you know if he actually did that? And if so, are pros just superhuman? How do they hold that high of a percentage of their FTP for that?
He only raced for 6 hours and 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
That is a good point.
And I did it for 9.
Right,
That's a huge part of it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that makes it a lot easier. Yes, Alex Grant is superhuman, but we did see his power file. We had questions about the accuracy of his power meter on that day, so we didn't go back to it. What he kind of suggested, I think he said he was going to hold like 280 or something.
Okay.
In general, I would be very surprised if anyone could do that high percentage for that amount of time.
Okay.
Especially at elevation and with the amount of descending and climbing and stuff.
Yeah, and he had an amazing day with a lot of troubles. He was still 637 or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is unbelievable. Okay, so for the average Joes like us, we'd be looking more at that 0.65 to 0.7 IF for the day.
But again, use this as like a generality.
Yeah.
And then in your other races that you do, start to learn.
Yeah, as a base.
Another big thing that I'm really big on is do new stuff on race day. Because everyone says don't do anything new on race day, but race day is so much different than every other day in training. Like you're more nervous, you're tapered, like every single thing is different. And people are like, don't do anything new on race day. But what I like to do is and we'll do stuff in training. But then I'm like, on race day, here's how my optimal plan is. And I'm not going to eat, 800 grams of carbs loading up on a training day.
No,
right?
exactly.
But I'll do this in lower priority races that I don't care about as much, like leading up to Leadville. So I practice race execution, and I'll throw new stuff in there. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least I learned something. So maybe the pacing would be an example of that. Is maybe I'll start on a practice race at 0.7. I've never held it in training. And again, 0.7 for 9 hours. Like, don't go out and train that way.
Oh no.
But you could try it for a 6-hour race and see how it feels. And you're like, hey, halfway through, it destroyed me.
Did not work.
Right? And then you adjust. So I like the idea of doing new stuff on race day, changing it up, and just use it as feedback and be okay if you fail.
Okay.
What about the corral position? How important do you think that is?
Huge, gigantic.
Where was your corral position?
What was I? Green.
Green, yeah.
Green, yeah. No,
What's
gold's the pros.
For people that don't know the difference between the corral positions at Leadville, explain how that works.
Yeah, so it goes gold, silver, red, green, and green's like kind of in the middle, and then down from that. And you do
number of colors, yeah.
Yeah, then if you've never done it before, you're in the white corral.
And it's a mass start. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so that position does matter.
It's so tight in that first climb. So that first climb I wanted to do, I actually wanted to do 270 on that first climb in order to get in a better group for the flats.
Okay.
Because I was doing the math in my head, and if you can draft behind somebody.
So it's draft legal, right?
Yeah.
100%. Okay.
Yeah, if you can draft behind someone, that saves way more watts than the extra 20 watts I was going to burn.
Yes.
But on that first climb with my corral position, I was doing 230 watts. So I was kind of freaking out, and I was very behind the pace to hit 9 hours, even halfway through the race, because it was so hard to go through. And the green corral is a pretty good corral. If you've done sub 9 before, you're in the green corral. So in the white, the white corral rule of thumb is about 30 minutes added to your time. So you just have to pass so many people, and there's so much traffic.
How did you break out of the clutter and move through it? What was your strategy for that?
I couldn't do it for about, let's say, at least an hour. And then there was a road.
Okay, let's talk about your recovery before we get into our famous Watt Point question. So as far as recovery goes, I mean, were you just completely destroyed when you crossed the finish line?
Oh, yeah. I cramped up. I didn't fall off the bike, but I didn't cramp up, but I was like kind of twitching. I wanted to fall asleep, which was weird. I've never gone so deep. Yeah.
I heard something, I think you said on one of your podcasts, that your hands were turning.
That's what Jonathan said. He was there at the finish line, and he saw me do that, and he said my ankles and hands were turning in.
Which is a thermoregulation issue or something?
I don't know.
Fetal position, maybe?
Yeah.
Your body's like...
It was hard. And then it took me... I had surgery a week later, but it was... For the whole next week at work, like I couldn't think. I didn't want to be there. Even sitting in a chair was tiring.
And you love what you do, so that's...
Yeah.
Yeah,
it wasn't like everyone's like, that's every day at work.
No, yeah, I know, right? That's like me. I get up and I'm excited to go. Monday rolls around. I'm like, yes, I get to go back to work. What about right after the race? What do you recommend is best?
Oh,
pizza, beer. What do you think?
I know, whatever you want. Like, just whatever makes you happy. IVs would be awesome, but
they don't do those there, right? Some Ironmans they do it if you want, but they didn't have any IVs. I think you wanted an IV. Right?
I wanted an IV because I was so dehydrated, but I think every race should have IVs would be nice. Another stickler thing I have is they didn't have cold water at some of their aid stations.
Oh, I hate that.
Why don't races have?
Who wants warm water in a race?
I know. It's like a 9-hour race, they probably filled it up with ice at 7 a.m. And then 9 hours later, it's just
because they just keep opening it and closing with
Or when you're that deep, I lived in Vegas for years, and you go out and do 4 or 5 hour rides, and 4 hours in, there's nothing better than ice cold water.
Well, it does two things to you too. It actually cools your core down. Yep. I think you had a guest talk about that too.
Yep.
So that will lower RPE and improve performance. And then the other thing is, I don't know this for sure, but I've heard that actually cold water absorbs faster than like hot water.
Interesting.
There's different theories on like what. Well, there's some theories that even genetically that some people are better suited towards warm and cold.
Really?
It's kind of all over the place.
I think I'm suited towards cold.
So am I.
Yeah. What about the days after? What did you do? Did you?
I took an entire week off, and then I had nasal surgery, so I took another week off.
Yep.
And I came back, and I think maybe now I'm just starting like 6 weeks after to get back to where I was before Leadville.
Really?
Yeah.
What about a food perspective? How did you eat after? Anything you want?
So Postmates came to Reno.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is like food delivery.
Yeah.
And I was at the same time I had Wetzel's Pretzels coming to my house and Five Guys, and this is after I ate a full dinner. I gained. I have like a Nokia body fat scale, and it showed my body fat going down the entire like 6 months.
Yeah.
And then in 1 week, it went up to where it was 6 months before.
No.
Yeah. And that's your body's just so good at absorbing food.
Yeah.
And I ate just everything
That you can get your hands on. I love it. I love it. What about time moving back to normal training? What do you recommend?
Start easy and start. I think TrainerRoad, you do a ramp test to kind of get your zones re-leveled. It can take a lot out of you, and just don't expect. I haven't done a 2-hour workout since then. I'm starting with like hour stuff because it just takes so much out of you, especially if you do everything right. And I took a whole bunch of caffeine and stuff. I feel like you can deplete yourself more. You kind of get limited if you don't drink and eat. Even though it hurts more, you're actually not putting out as much power over the time. So maybe I think long term it's a little bit easier to recover if you go hard for like 4 hours, but then just limp in for another 4. Yeah.
Very
Interesting.
cool.
Okay, so we ask every guest our what point question, and you've listened to some of our episodes, so you get the gist. So basically, if a guest follows all of your advice from this show, how many watts is that worth? And we always do it based on a 300 watt FTP, which conveniently at Leadville, you were about a 300 watt FTP. So if somebody just blows their nutrition, their gear choices, their corral position doesn't really matter, but how many watts is that worth in a race like this?
I have a spreadsheet with this.
Yes.
Oh, all right, man. We gotta go.
And I want to.
Cooper and you are the only guys who had spreadsheets, but
I want to mention a few other things. So skin suit, I'm not sure. I'm going to say 4 watts on average, just because there's climbing and stuff. Number placement. So mountain bike races, you have put a number on your bars, and there's different ways to put that on your bike. Some people make it where it's perfectly like
flat.
Flat's good. They make it like perpendicular to the ground.
Yeah.
So you can make it parallel to the ground. So what you don't want to do is have like this billboard at the front of your bike.
Right.
You can imagine how arrow that is. A lot of people do that. So what you can do is I kind of I cut out a little. They always tell you not to do this, but don't cut where the sensor is. You can look at the back and see like the RFID sensor. I cut a little like slip out of it, and I scooted up to where my Garmin is, like the arm that holds your Garmin.
Yeah.
So it slips in there, and then I try to have it kind of as parallel to the ground as I can.
Okay.
Yep.
So that it has less frontal area.
Yep.
That's so easy to do.
Right.
You can still read it if you're coming up for race officials and stuff, but everyone else is like, it's like this old mountain bike thing where the number just has to be straight up
like
and down.
a sheet of plywood driving with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like literally a barn door, like what they talk about. So I estimated that to be 3 watts. I don't know. I could be probably more than 3 watts, but.
Well, it's funny you say that. If you look at Todd Wells right here, when he has the aero bars, this picture, he's got his all bent over in an arrow shape.
His is even arrow shape. That's probably even better than mine.
Yeah, that's super smart. Now that you say that, I'm just looking at that. Yeah.
And everyone there knows who Todd Wells is.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
they don't know his number.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's the first one who finishes.
Yeah.
Tires. We didn't talk about tires.
We didn't talk about that. Let's talk about that really quick, because I've been looking at a lot of that, and you look at rollingresistance.com, they have a lot of mountain bike stuff on there. You can say, you used a Thunderbird. Is that what you used?
I used a Racing Rail front and a Thunderbird rear.
Okay, and you have a lot of like I use Continental stuff, but Continental's Race King is very similar to the Thunderbird, where you have a really reduced tread pattern in the center and then some lugs on the side. They even have the Speed King. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's
basically like a road tire in the center, which I think would be a little low. That's a huge difference. You can save 8 watts, 10 watts with that. Or more.
I didn't see a single person with a Thunderbird rear, and I think they should have. So if you like a classic cross country tire from Maxxis would be Icons.
Yep.
And according to bicyclerollingresistance.com, I think that's what it is. The difference between my setup and 2 Icons would be 16.7 watts.
Well, this is huge.
Just from tire choice.
Yeah.
So if you want to go maxes, I think our faster tire is an Aspen. I don't have data on that, but just based on what people say, that's what they think. So right there, like 16 watts just by your tire choice. And
what's 5% for a guy
16 watts for that, 4 for a skin suit. You're probably looking at a watt or two with your race number. That's, I mean.
So the tires, I'm going to say with that one in a 1.25 minutes for every watt, that's 20 minutes just based on your tire.
Yeah.
So I would not have gotten my big belt buckle if I would have chosen different tires.
That's insane.
And you always got to think about puncture protection and all that kind of stuff.
But there's not a lot in Leadville, right?
No, people do. People do puncture in Leadville, and I don't know how, but they do.
But
You didn't you didn't have any issues like that?
No, I had the snake skin protection on the new Addicts compound of the Schwabes, and they were fine.
Cool.
That's built into the tire.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
And tubeless. Like,
Nice.
Go tubeless, obviously.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
If you acclimate, 15 watts
Okay.
for my FTP.
Yep.
Right there. Wax chain. We didn't talk about this.
No, you did it.
You doped the chain, yeah?
I wax my chain and I wax my cassette,
Interesting.
which is so.
Did you have that done by a third party, or you just did it yourself?
I'll show you our waxing station here.
You have a wax.
Oh yeah, it's so. This is waxing your chain. For those that don't know, you clean a perfectly fresh chain. It's hard to clean, but you got to clean it really well. And you go online to Molten Speed Wax. I'll tell you how to do that. And then you dip it in like paraffin wax. I use Molten Speed Wax, and they put like Teflon in it and stuff. It's pretty cheap in like a crock pot. You dry it out, and then you get a very, very efficient chain. Triathletes have been doing it for a long time, and a very silent chain. And especially what's crazy is you'll go on a mountain bike race, 5 hours, very dusty conditions. You'll touch your chain, and your hand will be completely clean
Wow.
because nothing sticks to the wax.
Right.
And so I had like a training chain, and then I had a special race day wax chain that I did one ride before to be able to use it. And just a dirty chain with, if you have like a dirty chain, and it might look clean on the outside, but inside the pins and stuff,
Yeah.
that doesn't get clean if you have tension on your chain and you're scrubbing it. Like, you're not scrubbing inside those pins.
Nope.
You can use ultrasonic cleaners, which we have, and you take your chain off and do that. But
the chains aren't that expensive.
no.
No. Yeah.
So, and it makes your chain last longer, actually, too, to wax it.
Yep.
Okay.
We have two different crock pots here. We have a race crock pot and a training crock pot.
You guys got a second line of business going here.
Yeah. Yeah. So the training crock pot is to be able to, if you already waxed your chain, that you can re-dunk it very quickly in the training crock pot. And there might be a little bit of dirt in there.
Without contaminating the race cup.
And the race one is just purely like, pristine chains.
Okay.
So I'm going to say that's about 7 watts.
Wow.
I mean, it is a dirty chain to a clean chain. It could even be more than 7. And then waxing the cassette, the Molten Speed Wax guide said to do it. Shifts like a dream.
Okay.
That's also very clean. Other thing I did is a whole bunch of caffeine. I was trying to aim for 800 milligrams of caffeine, which is crazy. And this is also read studies. This is like the upper limits of what they could see would give people performance increasements.
Okay.
It makes you feel horrible as soon as you stop racing. I don't recommend it for people. Start at maybe 1 to 200 milligrams and see how you go.
Well, different people genetically respond to caffeine in different ways. Yeah. So we did the genetic profile with Jessica Nurek, and she said that you either respond to it well or you don't. So you clearly
We sure have metabolized. So
you clearly do well.
I metabolize it quickly. I did a 23andMe test, I think, and it had that kind of
Very
marker.
similar, yeah.
And it says like I'm more likely to consume high amounts of caffeine.
Okay.
And that one, I mean, when you take caffeine pills 4 or 5 hours into a race, it lowers your RPE. It makes you feel so good.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't know. So these last kind of watts for the carb loading and the caffeine, I don't know. But it could be the difference between a bonk or not.
Yeah. I mean, it could be 100 watts, really.
Okay, so I want to beat Ryan. So let's say
there's no competition in this guy at all.
I mean, and then the training and all that kind of stuff. And, TrainerRoad's priceless, all that kind of stuff. Of but just based on those numbers I just said, the skin suit, the number replacement, the tires, the acclimation, and the wax chain, that's 45 watts. So maybe like 57 minutes.
Wow.
Or
that's about an hour at Leadville.
Yeah, or 45. If you do a minute per watt, that's about 45 minutes.
Okay.
And then on top of that, not bonking I mean,
But that could
that's
be
huge.
80 watts, 100 watts. I mean, that's
Exactly.
Crew. I mean, crew
said
has to
you're-
account for some
you're-
watts too.
Yeah, just time. Yeah.
And one of your last climbs, you said you were doing like, what was your wattage, like 89 or something?
Yeah, so that's the if I would have done
That sounds like me on a regular day.
going back power line again, I would have actually brought 2-liter water bottles. SAS makes liter water bottles.
Yeah.
I would have had them like half frozen, put that in, no backpack because the backpack late in the race makes you hot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like having that big black thing on your back. So I would have had 2 liters to get to the next aid station.
Yeah.
Plenty, right?
Yeah, but so I was dehydrated and I looked down at my power meter and said, okay, I can maintain this. And I was going 89 watts. I was like, oh, this is going to be bad.
So that was a bonk, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
blowing up. And you were averaging 230 to 250 for the rest of the race.
Yeah.
So, there's the numbers right
89's hard.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool, man. This has been a very, very interesting podcast. I think anyone who's going to do an ultra endurance event is definitely going to take a lot out of this.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back for sure.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks
All right,
guys.
man.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to listen to episode 15, where we interview a list of athletes at the Ironman World Championships to learn what they did to qualify for the race on the Big Island.
If you enjoyed the show, please help us by sharing our podcast and by leaving a rating or review. If you want to learn more about our company, FLO Cycling, please visit us online at flowcycling.com. That's F as in Frank, LOCYCLING.com. You can also find us under FLO Cycling on Facebook and Instagram. Until next time, ride safe.